Hi everyone, welcome to the next edition of the Trainee Diaries series. My name is Sinead Fox-Hamilton. I'm from Chartered Accountants Ireland and I am talking to some of the ACA trainees that we have. And today I am delighted because we have Lucy and Niamh joining us from Deloitte. So ladies, you are so good to come along and join us. Thank you so much. It's a delight to have you. So I think to warm things up, it makes sense for me to hand over and maybe ask you to briefly introduce yourselves. Would you tell me, I suppose a bit about where you're up to and also maybe a bit about how did you even end up here? How did you get into the profession? So Lucy, I have you on my left. We'll come to you first if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem, Sinead, thanks. So I actually didn't know I wanted to be an accountant when I went to university. I studied economics and politics in UCD in Dublin. And how I got into accountancy was I had an apartment in Dublin that I wanted to keep over the summer. I decided to stay that summer and not, come home, back up to County Down. But wanted to do something relevant to my degree, so something in finance or that sort of world. And secured an internship in an audit department in Dublin, and completely fell in love with it. Really enjoyed it, and thought this is something I would like to continue on. And I was offered a job there, but decided I wanted to come back, home. So I then applied for a graduate scheme with Deloitte in Belfast, and that's how then I started. I was lucky I had that wee bit of experience the internship, and that sort of gave me a real insight into it, and that's how I ended up being an accountant then.
And the rest, as they say, is history. And what department are you then in now at the minute, Lucy?
Yeah, I'm in audit, so start in audit, still in audit.
Starting audit, still audit. Love that, fantastic. And level-wise, are you a couple of years into the programme? What stage are you at?
So I'm at my FAE level, which is the Associate 3 level, so I'll be finished now. I'll be doing my FAEs this year and be exam qualified, hopefully, if I pass them once they're over, and then be time qualified next year.
Oh, brilliant. So ends in sight, countdown is on. Brilliant. Well, Niamh, what about you? Tell me a bit about your journey.
So I suppose I'm quite like Lucy. I didn't have a clue that I wanted to be an accountant. I did sort of English, Irish, history and biology at A level, and then went on and did law at Queen's. So I suppose I enjoyed the degree, but I knew pretty much straight away that I didn't want to be a solicitor or a barrister or anything. So I spent a year in America and studied business, and as part of that I sort of did a wee bit of accountancy. And I thought it was, quite useful and interesting. And then I went back and finished my degree. And I suppose I was looking around for jobs like most final year students, and came across Deloitte and the job that I applied for then, which is internal audit risk advisory. I just thought it was really interesting, and it gave you sort of a lot of experience in different areas of business. And then as part of that, I wanted something that had like a professional qualification as well. And obviously the Chartered Accountants one is one of the best. So that's sort of how I ended up. I mean, if you told me when I was 16 that I would be doing accountancy, I couldn't wait to give up math. So I would have just laughed at you. But yeah, I think it's worked out well. So that's sort of how I got into it.
We're not dissimilar, Niamh. I'm the same. I would never have thought I'd end up in this path. Maths, I was thinking, no, that's not the subject area. I ended up in law as well, and here we both are, and I certainly haven't regretted it anyway. Level-wise then, Niamh, are you similar to Lucy? Are you at that FAE level?
Yes,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Brilliant. Again, countdown's on for you as well.
Yeah.
Well, look, ladies, we've got to flavour a bit of the backdrop at this stage. I know our viewers want to know a bit more about, I suppose, the nitty-gritty of the day job. What is actually involved? What do you guys get up to? Could you tell me a bit more about that? Lucy, back to yourself.
Yeah, so I would say I work in the audit department. So my job mainly consists of going out to companies, looking at their financial statements and looking at how basically they manage their risks and making an assessment of how good that is. What that means in everyday terms is that there's a lot of problem solving in our job. So you do find, if you are the sort of person who likes, doing, you get the thrill of saying doing like a long maths equation and comes to the right answer, you're like, oh yes, we're really, breaking something down. You get that real sense of satisfaction, and there's problem solving on your own and with your team. So that's a massive part of it. And I sometimes feel there's a bit of a misconception around accountants. You're sitting at a desk all day, where I know in my department anyway, you'll be talking to people all the time. And it's one of the things that really drew me to audit. You get talking to clients. It's maybe different clients every couple of weeks, sometimes every couple of days. It just depends on where you are. And you get to know people very well, and you're having discussions about, what's in their financial statements and getting back up to that, and, having discussions, maybe judgments they've made around their financial statements. You're talking about all those sort of things, and that's really enjoyable. Another thing I would do, well, obviously not at the minute because we're all at home, but pre-COVID, I would have travelled quite a lot to client sites. So it definitely is a great department. If you don't like the same routine every day, I sometimes can't even sit in the one spot in the house. So during the working day, so it's great for being able to travel out and about different places and getting to meet people. And I, to be honest, I love it. And it's a very very enjoyable job, and a job I'm very comfortable in, and it brings its own challenges, and it's a job you can sort of work your way up. And work on different things. People say it's a bit of a cliche, no 2 days the same, but genuinely no 2 days the same.
So variation definitely at the heart of the role is ringing loud and clear there.
Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you, Lucy. What about yourself then, Niamh? What's your working world like?
Yeah, I would say our jobs would be quite different, mine and Lucy's, but they're sort of similar in that every day, every week, every month is really different and varied. We would do internal audits, so unlike Lucy's, it would be more looking at sort of the controls behind the financial statements, and sort of operational processes. So I've done audits on, data protection controls, risk management, key financial controls like payroll, things like that. So you could be doing something completely different from week to week. Our reviews would tend to last a couple of weeks, so you do move around quite a lot. And I suppose as well, like let's say we would have gone out in site quite a lot before COVID, but obviously that's not happening so much anymore. We've quite a small team. There's only about 12 of us, so we get to know each other quite well. And you do get a lot of support, and especially with your clients, we would do public and private sector, and you do get to know people really well. And I suppose as well, you just have to have a strong attention to detail and good communication skills, and you do get a lot out of the job, I would say. So that's sort of my
your experience.
Yeah, day to day.
You actually touched on something there. It's maybe a nice segue into a follow-up question. I suppose you're talking there about supports.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find coming into the roles? If we rewind back to when you started, I know viewers are always interested. Are you dropped into the deep end? Is there training? What's it like in those early weeks even? Can you tell me a bit about that, Lucy?
Yeah, so when we first started, the first 2 weeks were training down in Dublin, which was great because there was no pressure on you to know everything. Now, there was a lot of information thrown at you, which was a bit daunting, but you do get to know things on the job. But during those 2 weeks, they give you the time to get to know the people across your whole year group. So Deloitte's obviously, and from our department, is all Ireland. So you got to know people from across Ireland. Everybody who's in the exact same boat as you. People come from different backgrounds, people maybe having masters in accountancy, people who have never studied accountancy in their life. So that was great and brought a real social element to it. After those 2 weeks, then we went to the office, and we were put on jobs straight away. Now I can't speak everybody, but my experience was I was put in the job, and you're thrown in the deep end, which at the time you're like, why did I do this? Why have I signed up for this? What am I doing? And your training goes out of your head. But it's the best thing for you because, and Niamh, you'll probably agree, it's the type of job where you learn on the job. And that's that's real life experience, and you find, you will make mistakes, but there's so many people there to support you, and you can be guaranteed if you're asking something you think is stupid, it's not, an answer is only simple, or something's only simple to do if you know how to do it. So if you don't know, the best thing you do is ask. And I find in Deloitte that people were so helpful. Everybody was ready. Everyone knew what the position you were in because they were there a year, 2 years, 3 years before. And because there is like an intake every year, it's really good that people can relate firsthand. It's not something they've done maybe 10, 15 years ago and forget how hard it is, to come into a new environment and pick up new processes and new ways of learning and working. But Deloitte were brilliant. They really did support you. You have a series of e-learnings to do, which obviously then they're like a theoretical application that you can bring into practice across the different processes and work that you're going to be doing. So the support was fantastic. So if anyone's worried about getting into a new environment or having any experience, like you're at no advantage or disadvantage going in, you assume that you know nothing and you learn it pretty quick.
And was that the same for yourself, Niamh?
Yeah, exactly the same. Just we had the training for a couple of weeks, and obviously you do get a lot of information, like Lucy was saying. But yeah, it's good to get to know your intake. That's sort of where myself and Lucy were in different intakes and different trainings, but that's where we would have got to know other people. And yeah, you get back to the office and you get a buddy, it's called, as well. So that's just someone on your team that can show you stuff like how to use the printer, where the tea bags are in the kitchen, which was the most important thing for me. Yeah, so, and again, you learn very quickly not to be afraid to ask questions because you won't know everything and you're not expected to either. So I suppose it's just jumping head first in and just getting going is the main thing, I think, and not being afraid to ask when you need a bit of help, because it'll come up very quickly when you won't know what you're doing.
No, it's something I always shout about. If anybody inquires with me about the profession, yeah, it's daunting, but there's so many people there. There's a supportive environment, and we're talking there. When people go into the large training firms like Deloitte, you're in a big intake. There's so many others just like you. You're in a training contract that is a ready-made supportive program. So it's great to hear you talk through it there. I'm interested to know how you balance it all, ladies. So obviously you've got the professional day job, and then you've got the professional level study. How have you found juggling it all, Lucy?
Honestly, you need a plan, and you need to be realistic with yourself, and it's so doable, like probably the same as Niamh. Like I've been doing exams in May, June time for the past 9 years from a GCSE. So, you've plenty of experience at it. But my honest advice would be make a plan that's realistic. There's no point saying to yourself, oh, I'm not going to do anything for these couple of days and then I'm going to do like 12 hours on a Saturday, or by the same token saying I'm going to work all day and then work all night. Like, be kind to yourself and know when you're best to do work. If you're the type of person who can't do work in the morning, on a Saturday or Sunday, then don't put it in to do it at that time. And be really honest with yourself about when you're best to study. And for us, like working full time, it's about doing it little and often, not, trying to cram, because if you're doing stuff during the day, your focus is on that. And then, if you don't do anything until the very end, it's just to be crammed in your head. It doesn't work like that. And one thing I find good is actually scheduling in downtime. So, sometimes yourself when you're studying, if you don't schedule in downtime, your first risk is that you'll take too much anyway because it's not scheduled, and then you'll just, it'll completely blow your plan out of place. Or you'll feel guilty when you're taking a bit of a downtime. So like, I know personally, I've never missed a GAA championship match in all the years I've been doing exams because I've scheduled them in. I remember having an A level the day before down Play Tyrone, and I was like, but I am going to that match and I'm going to earn my downtime and enjoy that, because I work my studying around that. So I suppose the big thing is just being realistic and being, being honest with yourself and having a good plan. Classes tend to start in around September, October time, and your exams, depending, obviously on what level you're at, run from either May, June, or August. So knowing, how to plan in advance and breaking it down and just doing it little and often, keeping it ticking over, and then you've nothing to panic about.
I'm a Tyrone girl there, Lucy. You just picked up on that match.
That match, that actually was a replay. So Down actually drew with Tyrone the week before. I blamed the ref. And then the following week was the replay. So remember, it was the night before my AS Maths, and I was like, you couldn't make this up. How did this happen? The 1 year I didn't want it to be a replay, and then Tyrone won the replay. We missed the penalty in the opening minute.
You missed the penalty.
He's went on.
Oh no, moving swiftly on. Niamh, what about you? How have you found balancing it all?
Yeah, it was very difficult at the start. I mean, it's completely different to anything you'll ever do. Like, I suppose you both know. I think when you take a look at I started at Cap 1, like Lucy as well, when you take a look at all the different, the competency statements, it's a lot, especially when it's almost like a different language when you haven't done something like that before. But I think, just like Lucy said, planning is key. I've always sort of taken that approach all through my education, and that's something that sort of helps me a lot. It sort of takes the anxiety out of a wee bit, so you're not overdoing it, but you're also not caught out when it gets to May and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do double entry. So it's just, yeah, it's useful to do that. And I would say as well, especially now working from home and studying from home, I think it's really important when you log off to try and completely switch off and not think about work and really sort of segment them and keep them separate. And also, I mean, you have a team. There's so many people that you're working with that have gone through it, like Lucia said. So, reach out and make sure you're asking for help when you need it, even if it's something really small, like study tips, or if it's a specific thing to a module. I would definitely, say reach out and get help. And then I suppose just I always try to get outside for a walk if I just can't make sense of it all, and exercise is important as well, even though those are the really boring study tips, but they definitely help.
They're so critically important. The amount of people would say to me, and even practicing a lot would practice meditation, mindfulness, or indeed get out for a walk, a good old simple clear the head and come back to it, and that that can make the world of difference. All those things that both of you said, ladies, are really important. Reaching out, asking for help. There is that maybe a fear factor of, oh, I don't want to seem, that I can't manage it, or that, I haven't got the capability. But sure, that's what it's all about. If you don't know the answer, everybody's here to support, whether it's ourselves or at your own firm. So, thanks for talking through that. I suppose in summing up, ladies, if somebody is considering this career path, what would you say to them? Would you recommend it? Would you have any hints or tips to share? Lucy, back to you.
Definitely would recommend it if you are the sort of person who likes to work hard. Like, there's no point in that, but it is a job that you have to work hard in and be dedicated to, but you definitely reap the benefits of that. You obviously are going to have a very good qualification at the end of this, that it's recognised for, if you have this qualification, people understand the work that's behind it, and can tell you're a determined person by virtue of having that. So it's definitely something, if that's the kind of person you are, if you're hardworking and driven and want reward, well then definitely. I think there's scope as well for everybody, in that there's times you're working in a team, there's times you're working on your own, and what I personally love about accountancy, and I've said this a couple of times at career fairs, and it's something I feel like isn't pushed enough. With accountancy, you have an opportunity to go into so many different areas. So for example, I was working on a car manufacturer. I really love this particular brand of car, and I met the finance team there. So even say you're someone who's a car enthusiast, you can be an accountant and work there, so you're combining your job with your hobbies or your interests or your passions, and everywhere needs an accountant. Every business needs an accountant. So there's so many doors that can be opened for you. There's so many different things you can go into, so many different people you can meet, and it genuinely opens so many doors. I would definitely recommend it to anybody who's thinking about it. And a wee tip I would have for anybody, some people, if you don't come from an accountancy background, I'd say I don't. When you first go in, you feel a bit, or even if you're applying to it, it might put you off that you're not from that background. But my honest thing is just be yourself. When you go into an interview, if you are applying or thinking of applying, even whether it's for a grad scheme, an internship, a job in general in accountancy, don't go in thinking you need to know the answers, because no one is sitting there assessing whether you know this already, because you'll be taught that. They're assessed the type of person you are, whether you fit to the culture, whether you're hardworking, that like people who are quite upbeat and bubbly and, passionate, and just bring that across. And don't be afraid to use the fact you've got, I remember talking to a fellow who was coming into an interview, and he's like, I've got no experience. So I just chatted to him like this, just a general conversation. He told me how he captained the team. It was a hurling final. He scored the winning point. I was like, oh, so you can perform under pressure. And he's like, well, no. I was like, use that experience, use your real life experience and bring it in, because there's so much you do in your everyday life that you can actually bring in. So, don't be put off by not having those exact attributes, or having not studied accountancy or not been interested in it before. Just go for it and sell yourself and enjoy it.
Do you know what? You've hit the nail on the head in a couple of things there. I often, be faced with students who are like, but I don't come from accounting. But as you said, it's about the underpinning skill sets, the problem solving, the critical thinking, the decision making, even communication, performing under pressure, juggle balance? You know, are you part of a, you know, maybe a team, a sports team? Are you working in a society, you know, alongside your studies or whatever? So, no, absolutely, really, really great points there. Niamh, what about you? What would you say to somebody considering the profession?
Yeah, I would just emphasize what you've both said. If you don't come from an accountancy background, definitely don't be put off. As I said, I really didn't ever think it would have been the last career that I would thought I would go for, but it's sort of the skills that are really important that it teaches you. Another thing, I think the qualification translates really well internationally. It's a really good one to have in your CV. So if you're interested in traveling for work, especially being in a big firm, that's definitely a really possible route. And also you're not sort of in one team at all times. You know, you might go and work in different teams. I know I've worked in Lucy's once for a few weeks, and that was really good experience. So I think, yeah, it's definitely, if you want loads and extensive sort of level of experience and a really good qualification behind you, and you're willing to sort of work for it as well, then I definitely would give it a go. It could be one of the best things you do. So.
Well, what a note to end on. Ladies, thank you so much for that. And as you said, Niamh, the travel piece is there for anybody that does want to travel. Lucy, you touched on it, you can work in any sector. We have quite a few members that are car enthusiasts and are working down Boucher Road and beyond and in other car companies. It does translate whether it's geography or sector. And it's lovely that you've been so honest and come along and share your experiences. So thank you. And everybody tuning in, I've no doubt you enjoyed that one. So thank you. And ladies, thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.